Do you struggle with task overload, waking up overwhelmed and not sure of which items to tackle, and sometimes feeling like it's not even worth trying at all? If this is you, I have a couple tips that I've learned from some Navy SEALs that I want to share with you. Stay tuned. Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Dean. I'm the CEO of Stealth Capital. We're one of the top performing companies in our space. I am an entrepreneur, investor, trader, any number of titles you want to slap onto that. These videos are made for my future children and their children, and hopefully they can look back on Pop and Grandpop's life and say, hey, he made a bunch of mistakes and there's a lot to be learned. Hopefully it's useful for you as the audience as well. So today I want to talk about some of the most useful mindsets and tools that Navy SEALs use that help organize and tackle specific targets in one's life. So one of the things I want to talk about is prioritizing and executing. So if you look at any videos made by Jocko Willink or Chad Wright or Andy Stump online, they all talk about this concept of prioritizing and executing. And what does that mean? That means that in the chaos that is life, there's so many things that are pulling at your attention, and the only way that helps bring clarity and presence is the ability to prioritize tasks according to what's most important to least important, and then executing on each task while not looking at the larger picture. Some of the best interviews I've seen are with Chad Wright and Andy Stump, where they talk about the topic of what helped them get through BUD/S training, which is 6 months of some of the hardest training there is. And both of them talk about this concept of keeping their world small. And what that means is if you've encountered any type of chaos or anxiety or overwhelm in your life, it's usually because you're overwhelmed with the number of things that are on your mind that you think should be done, but you can't actually focus down and tackle any specific one because you feel like all of them need to be done at once. And so what is the solution for this? The solution is essentially prioritizing and planning your tasks so that they are from the most important to least important, and then focusing on just one task at a time. And as Andy Stump calls it, keeping your world small so that you only are doing one specific thing or what's right in front of you. And that builds momentum and progress and hope as you start clearing things from your plate. The least useful state is the state of overwhelm, where you have all these things that are on your mind and need to be done, but you have not clarified them and have not broken them down into bite-sized pieces to tackle them one by one. So Chad Wright is an ultra-marathon runner. He's also a very, very accomplished spiritual teacher, and he talks in many of his interviews about during BUD/S training, there was a specific evolution where they had to basically run a 1 mile repeat. And most people, if you think about it, can probably run 1 mile, and they can probably run it multiple miles if they needed to. But the issue was that a lot of these candidates were not able to continue running without thinking about how many more miles there is to go, how many more painful, grueling days there were to come, and how much more suffering there was in the pipeline. And that overwhelm is ultimately what caused many of the students to quit, as opposed to the actual task at hand. And I think that's a good metaphor for life in general, because a lot of times we are overwhelmed not because of the specific tasks that we must do in the moment, but rather by the fact that there is so much more to do and so much more to come. And that overwhelm is what makes us feel less powerful and less inspired to take each additional step. So the key to combating that feeling of overwhelm is focusing exactly on the specific task at hand and going bite-sized by bite-sized. I think anytime you look at running, for example, and if you train for a marathon, a 10K, something that requires more than a sprint, you will realize that if you look at the entirety of the race, it will be completely overwhelming. If you look at and count the number of steps it takes, etc., it's like, wow, how the heck are we ever going to do that? But the fact of the matter is, you're never taking more than one step at a given time. And if all you focus on is basically the 10 meters in front of you, as Chad talks about in his videos, it's never really that challenging. Can you get to that next lamppost that's 10 feet away? Of course you can. And so you keep doing that over and over and over. You almost have blinders on in terms of how horses have these blinders on each side to make sure they keep looking forward. Because looking at the entire piece is just going to put you in a state that is less effective. Whereas focusing on just the task at hand will make you have much stronger focus and be much more present, which ultimately allows you to live a more fulfilled and also more effective life in tackling any matter of goals that you may come across. That's it from me today. If you found this helpful, feel free to throw us a like below, subscribe. Have a wonderful day.